Welcome to an UnConference about students with additional needs in remote learning environments. Produced by Benetech, Bridge Multimedia, and CAST, with support from the U.S. Department of Education, Institute of Education Sciences, and the Office of Special Education Programs. Ideas that work. Module 5, Adapting for Disabilities. Technologies to support flexible and accessible learning. Escolar, effective scholastic curriculum for online learning and academic results. STEMI, promoting STEM at home for young children with disabilities. Using the B+, B Positive app for distance learning. Now our remote rock stars, the epic players, tell us about UnConference etiquette. This video shows a sequence of video messages from different members of the epic neuro-inclusive theater company.
Here are some tips so everyone can have an epic UnConference.
The event's web conferencing system provides access for participants with physical disabilities, blindness, and low vision through a range of Zoom keyboard shortcuts.
Please remember to keep your microphones muted.
Captions are being provided. If the captions are not already visible, click on the closed caption button along the bottom of the screen to view the captions.
An audio description will be available in the archived version of this UnConference.
If you have questions for the question and answer portion of this track, post them in the Q&A box, not in the chat box.
Please make sure you note which presentation you're referring to when you post your questions in the Q&A box.
We will try to get through all the questions, but you're always welcome to follow up with the speakers directly after the panel.
If you're having any technical difficulties, let us know through the chat box.
Have a wonderful conference.
Now meet two remote rock stars from Michigan to talk about creating virtual playgroups.
I am Heather Jagir. I'm a speech and language pathologist in early intervention at Lapeer County ISD, and I have with me
Katrina Wandre, special education teacher, early interventionist from Lapeer Community Schools. I said we probably should do a virtual playgroup, so then at least the kids are seeing other children, and at least the parents are seeing other parents, and then working on skills in their own home.
We pretty much follow this routine. We do have other service providers that join us on a rotation basis, so there's 3 of us that do it. Always Katrina and me, and then one other professional.
On a 4-way video chat, Katrina holds a bowl while her daughter mushes up its contents using her hands.
Malin, can you use your hands and show them how you mix it up with your hands? Oh yeah, it's like playing right outside in the dirt, isn't it? So if you guys don't have any dirt in your house and later you want to go and play outside in the dirt, this would be a fun activity to bring some water and a spoon, different animals or different little playthings outside.
Back to our 2 remote rock stars with Heather.
I will say what I really like is what I've been charged with is to do play with nothing but what they have in the home. So that's been kind of fun, like go find whatever, and then they come back and it's kind of a show and tell activity, and I see, oh, you have this and you have this and your cup looks like this, and so it gives a lot of different language opportunities.
A lot of our parents don't have paint. A lot of our parents don't have chalk. A lot of our parents don't have bubbles. So how can we get them those things safely? And so my administrator said, yes, you can come up, you can use the materials we have at the school to give out to families. And so I made a couple totes, put them up at our admin building where we usually have playgroup, and it has all of the supplies, including paint, maybe it's a straw, maybe it's a toilet paper roll, maybe it's whatever they need for that week is already in there.
So most of the things that you are choosing to use can be pretty easily replicated at home. So what I like is it shows families you don't have to have this exact thing. You don't have to have this exact toy. You don't have to have this exact whatever. This is the concept behind why we are doing the things that we're doing. I think that it brings parents together in a way, and it's almost like the participation is more because they're there doing the action, and maybe they wouldn't feel like that because we're the professional.
Hello, my name is Wendy Sapp, and I'm director of the OSEP-funded TV Access projects at Bridge Multimedia. And today I have the privilege of being your moderator for this set of lightning talks. And this set of lightning talks will be focused on accommodating students with disabilities during the COVID-19 remote learning. First, we'll hear from Luis Perez, a technical assistance specialist with CAST on technologies to support remote learning. Next, we'll hear from Fatima Tarasis Arianes, a research associate at the University of Oregon. We'll discuss STEM activities for students who are English language learners and for students with learning disabilities. Following that, we will have a second talk on STEM, this time focusing on very young learners with disabilities, presented by Megan Finn, the co-director of the Early Childhood Technical Assistance Center at UNC Chapel Hill. The final presentation in this set is from Kent McIntosh, a professor at the University of Oregon, on using the Be Positive app during distance learning. Immediately following Kent's presentation, we'll open for Q&A for all 4 speakers. Please make sure when you post your questions in the Q&A box to indicate which presenter you're asking your question to. We'll do our best to get through all of those questions. And now I will turn this over for Luis's presentation.
Our next track, Adapting for Disabilities, begins with Dr. Luis Perez, Technical Assistance Specialist, CAST. Dr. Perez's presentation is titled An Adjustable Seat, Technologies to Support Flexible and Accessible Remote Learning and Work.
What does a bicycle have to do with learning and accessibility? Stay tuned to find out. Hi, I'm Luis Perez, and I'm a Technical Assistance Specialist for the National Center on Accessible Educational Materials at CAST, or the AIM Center for short. The mission of the AIM Center is to increase both the availability and the use of high-quality, accessible educational materials that support improved learning opportunities for all individuals with disabilities, whether it's in education or in the workforce. Let's start by defining our terms to make sure that we're all on the same page. So what do we mean when we say something is accessible? It means that not only is the material or technology available to learners, but they actually can make use of it to support their learning as independently as possible. And as a person with a disability myself, I've seen the power of technology to have a significant impact on people's lives. And I also want to mention that it's important to address both sides of the accessibility coin. We want to make sure that we're creating and curating accessible educational materials that follow accessibility best practices, but we also want to make sure that we provide learners with the tools that they need to be able to make effective use of those materials. And fortunately, there's a lot of access technology that is now built into the devices that a lot of our learners already may have available in the home. And so the challenge is just to raise awareness of those tools and empower learners to use them to their best advantage. And in this lightning talk, what I want to do is share with you some of the tools that I use to empower myself as a learner and to have access to the learning and work environment. Okay, so let's go back to this idea of a bicycle, what it has to do with learning and accessibility. Whenever you go to the store to purchase a bicycle, you don't look for a bicycle for tall people. You don't look for a bicycle for short people. You just look for a bicycle that has an adjustable seat. And with that adjustable seat, we're able to put people in the optimal position for riding so that they get the most of their physical abilities. And this may seem like a really simple idea, but it's something that actually came about in the 50s from a researcher named Gilbert Daniels. He's a military researcher. And he came up with this idea to improve the performance of fighter pilots. And then this idea took hold and it became part of the mainstream. So originally it started with the cockpits in our planes. And we wanted to make sure that there was an adjustable seat, that there were adjustable controls. And then this made it possible for a wide range of different pilots to be able to become fighter pilots and be able to use those planes. And then that idea came into existence in our cars and, of course, in our bicycle. So think about that idea of adjustable supports that accommodate a wide range of variability in our learners. And let's think about the experience of learning how to ride a bicycle as well. Because when we first start out, if you think back to when you were a little kid, there were lots of falls. There were some scrapes. This is what we call productive struggle. And you started out with a lot of support. You started out with either a parent or a sibling. You had training wheels. But then over time, those supports were able to fade away to the point where you could ride by yourself and you mastered the art of riding a bicycle. And at that point, you could ride different types of bicycles, not just the one that you started out with. And so that's essentially what we want to do for learners is we want to start out with some of these supports. And then over time, we want to kind of turn the keys over to them. We want to empower them so that they can be independent. They can drive their own learning. And the way that we do that is by providing this adjustable seat where they can find the optimal position for learning. And so what I want to do now is take a look at a couple of examples of how I create this adjustable seat for learning for myself by using accessible formats that then support a number of adjustments that create the optimal position for me to learn on my devices. Here's an example where I've accessed a textbook in a format known as EPUB. And if you don't know what EPUB is, you can learn a lot more about it on the AIM Center website. Just look for EPUB in our search feature, and it should take you to a Getting Started with EPUB page. So the benefits of EPUB is that it is a reflowable format. And for someone like me, this makes it much easier for me to read on a mobile device. With other formats, I may have to enlarge the content and then pan around. And all of the panning really tires out my eyes. With EPUB, I can adjust the text size, and then the content reflows to fit the viewport. So I don't have to pan around. So let me show you some of the options that I use when I access an EPUB book on a mobile device. Here I'm using one of my tablets. With this book, I can adjust the text size. I can go in and choose different fonts, or I can adjust the background color so that now I have more contrast, and this makes it easier for me to see the content. Some of these same supports are built into the Edge web browser, which is available for Windows, it's available for the Mac, and it's called the Reading View in the Edge web browser. So here I can go in and again, adjust the text size. I can adjust the spacing. I can choose different fonts for readability. And then I can choose different background colors, again, just to make the content easier to see with more contrast. And then I can also turn on the text-to-speech, and it allows me to follow along with some highlighting. So that makes it easier for me to track what is being read out loud. And I can go back and forth between the cleaned up version that's presented in the Reading View, and it's much more personalizable, and the original version of the website in case I want to review that. To go back to our metaphor of a bicycle with an adjustable seat, you can see the corollary there with the digital materials where I can adjust the text size, I can change the colors. Again, I'm providing a personalized experience for myself, but that's something that took time for me to learn as a learner. And so we want to make sure that we start exposing learners as early as possible to different supports, such as text size or different background and foreground color combinations or text-to-speech, because it will take time for them to find the settings that are just right for them and that really put them in their best position for learning. So that's really important, is that these are not skills that come naturally. They have to be taught over time, along with a number of strategies. And again, to reiterate, it's really important to focus on a range of different platforms. So not just devices from one vendor, because our situations may change. We may need to use a tablet at one point, or we may be limited to the use of a computer at another point in our lives. So it's important to have a really flexible toolkit with a range of tools that we can pick from. So to use the bicycle metaphor again, if we are going on a nice leisurely ride, maybe we want to choose a different type of bike. But maybe if we're going off-road, we want to choose a bike with fat tires and more grip. So again, it's having a range of tools that you can select from to create the best learning environment for yourself is what's really important. That's why on the AIM Center website, we developed this section called Personalizing the Reading Experience. There's a display options section where there are options for customizing the appearance of the information, again, by adjusting a number of parameters. And then there's a section on text-to-speech, which is now built into a lot of devices. So whether you're using a smartphone, a tablet, a desktop, you can turn on text-to-speech, and then there's some customizations that you can perform for the text-to-speech. You can select different voices, you can adjust the speaking rate. So it's the same idea, except that now instead of adjusting the display of information, you're adjusting how you consume it in a different modality, in this case, audio. The ability to customize the learning environment is only possible when the materials themselves have been designed in a way that supports accessibility. And so we invite you to visit our website at aem.cas.org, because in addition to content focused on the end user and families and students and how they can customize the content to suit their needs, we also have resources on how to create accessible educational materials, or how to procure and how to curate selections of accessible educational materials, so that, again, there's a nice harmony between the materials that learners have available to them and their ability to use them to support their own learning and independence. I want to end this lightning talk with a quick reflection. So I want you to take a second, pause, and think to yourself, in what ways are you providing for yourself an adjustable seat for learning? In what ways are you providing that adjustable seat for learning for others that you work with? If you found this lightning talk helpful, and please feel free to reach out to us at any time at the AIM Center, aem@cas.org. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy your day and stay safe and healthy.
Here's one of our remote rock stars, special educator Nicole Driggs, to speak to us about remote learning, because we're all in this together.
It's been amazing to see how many connections we've all been able to make during this time, whether it be with fellow practitioners, teachers, parents, students. In so many ways, we're all closer than we've ever been before. And just having flexibility to know that everyone learns in a different way and every family is different, and what works for one might not work for the other. And really, it's reinforcing the whole idea of UDL and just giving opportunities for everyone to learn the way that they need to learn at this time. So there's been no one size fits all. Every family has been completely different, but it's caused me to be very flexible in my thinking and really think outside the box in a lot of ways, connect with other speech pathologists to maybe present my work in ways that I haven't before, because it's just not an option when you're not sitting across from a little person. And I've actually discovered some new games and new electronic modes for presenting the work that I've done in the past that the kids have really enjoyed. And, you know, while we're all going through the same storm, we may not be in the same boat, and it really has given us a moment to pause and think about how this experience is so different for every single student and family and teacher and therapist. So just learning to flex that empathy bone. So in this cloudy situation, there certainly is a silver lining, and I'm so glad to have connected with so many people.
Next on our Adapting for Disabilities track, please welcome Dr. Fatima Elvira Terrazas Arellanes, Research Associate, University of Oregon. Dr. Arellanes' presentation is titled Escolar, Effective Scholastic Curriculum for Online Learning and Academic Results.
Hello, my name is Fatima Terrazas, and I'm a research assistant professor at the University of Oregon. And today I'm going to be talking about Project Escolar. The Escolar project started 10 years ago with funding from the National Science Foundation and the Office of Special Education Programs to create accessible online materials to teach science to all middle school students, including students with learning disabilities and English language learners. With this brief video, I will show you the Escolar student platform and the teacher online training tools that you all can use for free. The first thing I'm going to show you is how to create an account. You click here, not a member, create an account. It is free for everyone, and you enter all of the required information. Then you click the register button. And the first thing you're going to see is the terms and conditions of usage, and you have to agree to those terms. Right after you agree to the terms and condition, it will take you directly to the page where all of the middle school science units are located. You will see that we start with foundational skills units, where we have one unit where we teach students how to create models, and another unit where we teach students how to create experiments. Then we have the Air and Space Sciences units, and we have 4 units in this topic. And if you're familiar with the Next Generation Science Standards, you'll know these topics are really aligned in the same sequence that the Next Generation Science Standards are presented. Then we have Life Science, again, with the sequence of the NGSS, Knowing My Body, Caring for Our Planet, something about genetics and adaptations. And you will see that we use some unique names because we try to capture the attention of the students with this name. We try to give meaning to the science with themes or titles that students can be more attracted to, rather than calling this unit genetics, for example. We call it the game of life. Then we get into physical sciences. And in physical science, we have 5 different units to cover all of these standards. First one is properties of matter, energy matters, the world waves, forces and interactions, and amazing chemistry. So with Scholar, you will have access to all of these different units, but you also will have access to some of the resources that we have for parents and teachers. And for teachers, we have a brief online tutorial that really tells you all of the things that you need to do to prepare to use our curriculum. We are in this tutorial, and here is a navigation bar. So you basically have to start from top to bottom. The first thing is to learn how your students are going to access this program. Basically, we tell you to contact us. You can use the program in an iPad, on a laptop. Really, any computer device will work as long as it has a browser. And we like to use Chrome because we like to use all of the apps that are attached to Chrome. But you can use Safari or any other browser of your preference too. Tell you how the unit is structured, so you are familiar of how the content is taught in the website. And I'm going to show you all of those pictures directly in the curriculum, but I'm not going to go through the whole tutorial, but it's here for you to go through the different steps. But I want to point out some of the other resources that we have for teachers. We have answer keys. So for any unit that you have, you can access the answer key for that unit. We also have lesson plans. So in preparation for teaching a unit, we recommend you that you also look at the lesson plans. And we have some tips of how to work with students with learning disabilities. We also have some tips for promoting collaboration with the students. We have also, because our unit has a lot of experiments, we have all of the list of materials that you need to conduct an experiment. And then the glossaries as well. Oh, and very importantly, we have the student reports. If you create accounts for your students and you link them to your class, you can access reports from all of the quizzes that students complete in this program. Now I'm going to show you some of the main features of the curriculum units, which is the platform for students. And I'm going to do this in the first place in the universe unit. The way the units are structured are based on stages, which are like chapters in a book. So this unit has 3 stages. And within each stage, there are lessons, which cover all of the content that is covered in the unit. Each lesson starts with a warm-up, which is a way for teachers to find out what students already know about the unit. Among some features in our program is the ability to use the text-to-speech. So if you highlight text anywhere in our website, you can use the text-to-speech option to have the content be read to you.
During the day, the sun appears to move across.
Another feature is the notebook feature. So if there are questions that students need to answer, they can use the notebook, read the question, then type the answer, and then save their answers and their notes up here. The notes can be edited, they can be deleted, whatever they want to do with them. Among other features in our website is the vocabulary definitions. So very specific vocabulary words have been selected by us because they are technical words, there are no frequently used words that need definitions to help a student understanding on the concept. So they appear in our website throughout. They are in a blue font. When you click on it, the definition pops up, and some of them have images as well. This is a read and discover activity which happens after the word map. Students learn about the content by reading, looking at some images, but there are very different ways to which we teach the content. For example, in this one, we also have an experiment. We have a lot of experiments and models that students have to create. And when students do the experiments, they fill out a lab sheet. We have different ones. If there is a model, it's a very different one, but students can type in here to complete this activity, and then they can save it at the end and send it to their teachers. They can upload images of the model that they created. And there are multiple steps for the experiment. So we work with them throughout the whole experiment, giving them instructions. In this case, they collect some data, so we have a table for them to complete as well. Looks like they have to collect data on sunrise and sunset and the date length, so they fill out and they use this information in their experiment. And we gave them instructions of how to create the graph, and they finish their experiment. Usually we have them upload their results in the forum, which is another feature that we have in this website. And there is always a team project activity. Among other resources that we have are quizzes. So after they go through the learning stages in that lesson, usually towards the end, there is a quiz activity that they need to complete. If the students take those quizzes, teachers can see the results of those quizzes in the report system that I showed you earlier. And you can see when they get something wrong, they get a sad face, but if they get it right, they get a happy face, so they can get some feedback. I don't have much time left, so I'm just gonna show you some other things that I open ahead of time, which are some interactives for other lessons. Here is one where they make a molecule. In here, students have to set up all of the different conditions to create a tornado. And it's a little bit of a process, so I want to show you, but you can explore it later so you can find out how students can create a tornado. Well, thank you so much, and please ask any questions. Bye.
Now, one of our remote rock stars, TVI Lisa Wallace from the Cobb County School District in Georgia, presenting Let's Build an Eyeball, Developing Remote Self-Advocacy Skills. During the video, internet screen captures appear corresponding to the presentation's topics.
One of my students is transitioning to middle school this fall, and over the last 2 months while he has been at home during the remote distance learning timeframe, he and I have talked about his self-determination, self-advocacy skills. He is able to answer questions about his visual impairment and is knowledgeable about the different types of equipment he uses to access his curriculum. One of the areas that we have been exploring is talking about the eye itself and the opportunity to explain to his new middle school students more about vision and how it works. We've talked about an article from the kidshelp.org that details the parts of the eye and how they all work together for vision. We did find out about a new idea that we're going to be going ahead and doing is the idea from Cindy Batchoffer from Texas School for the Blind. She detailed this in the Learning About My Eye Virtual Excel Academy webinar, and she gave instructions on how to build an eyeball using different materials that you can find around the house. So I've collected these materials around my house, and I look forward to helping my student build a bottle of the eye so he can explain to his middle school classmates about vision.
Next on our Adapting for Disabilities track, we have Dr. Jessica Amsbury, Frank Porter Graham Child Development Institute, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Dr. Amsbury will present STEMI, Promoting STEM at Home for Young Children with Disabilities.
Hello, and welcome to our presentation, Promoting STEM at Home for Young Children with Disabilities. We are the STEM Innovation for Inclusion in Early Education Center, STEMI. At STEMI, we have a goal that young children with disabilities can participate and benefit from high-quality STEM teaching and learning. We know that children with or without disabilities can develop the foundations for STEM learning right from infancy. Children are active learners exploring the environment in the preschool, infant, and toddler years. We also know that engaging in early STEM learning activities raises later scores in reading, writing, literacy, and math. And perhaps most importantly, we know that STEM opportunities can be incorporated into everyday routines and activities at home and in the community. For example, you can engage in STEM talk with your child while you're washing dishes. Watch this mom point out the measuring cup to her daughter.
Yes, those are measuring cups. Measuring cups.
She can then use the measuring cups to compare the size and capacity of containers and predict which container can hold more water. At STEMI, we've developed some resources to support you in teaching your child early STEM concepts at home. We are working and developing a storybook conversation series. We are working on supporting STEM learning in daily routines and activities, and we're developing some supports for telepractice and STEM learning. First, we're working on a series to support storybook conversations about STEM concepts at home. We've curated a list of books that are focused on STEM, and we're developing bookmarks with suggested prompts for these individual books. These resources are and will be available online for free and are downloadable. We've curated a list of STEM books for young children. The books present STEM ideas and topics accurately, and most are acclaimed, award-winning picture books. You see here the books we've curated focused on science. These are the ones focused on engineering. And these are the ones focused on math. Our storybook reading bookmark series is designed to be used by families. The inaugural storybook reading bookmark was developed with Eric Carle's much-loved book, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Tips for reading actively with children, along with links to online versions of the books, videos of adults reading the book aloud, and a printable bookmark are all provided. A very exciting addition to the storybook series is a set of at-home tips family members can use to adapt the reading process to their child's needs. Ideas for supporting a variety of needs are available, including tip sheets to support children with fine motor, communication, engagement challenges, or children with vision and hearing impairments. Here are some more examples of at-home adaptations. Watch this video to see how you can support children's storybook reading.
How did he feel? How did the caterpillar feel? Happy. You think he felt happy? Let's look at him. Look. Does he look happy? Does the caterpillar look happy?
We're working on expanding the bookmarks with activities and lists of STEM ideas and terms that go along with each book in the curated list. Tailored adaptations for each book will also be created and shared, as you can see in this example for the story, Six Dinner Sid. And here are some adaptation tips for Six Dinner Sid. Again, all of these resources are free and downloadable online on STEMI's website. A few more resources for Six Dinner Sid. We have also curated additional resources for families to support STEM learning in routines and activities, helping children understand COVID-19 and teaching children how to wash their hands. These are constantly updated as we review and find new resources that may be appropriate and relevant. Coming soon, we're also going to have STEM opportunities for daily routines and activities. We're planning to have tip sheets and videos to guide you how to include STEM learning opportunities in these daily routines and activities. We're also developing a series of videos to demonstrate caregivers integrating STEM learning into their daily activities. Watch as this mother works with her daughter to teach some STEM concepts such as representation, sequences, and patterns.
All right, I want to play the coding game too. So what was the code? I heard green was hoot like an owl.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I want 2 hoots.
Clap.
Clap? Okay, just 1 clap for me. And what was yellow?
Hoot like an owl.
I thought that was green.
No, these ones are clap.
Okay, so 2 claps. Red is
Spin.
spin around, okay. Clap, clap, spin, hoot like an owl, jump. Let's just say it first. Clap, clap, spin, hoot, spin. Ready? Ready? Clap, clap, hoot.
No, right there.
Oh, jump?
Jump.
Oh. Jump, hoot, and spin. Wow, that was a big spin.
We're also working on telepractice supports to help those engaging in telehealth and STEM learning. Topics will include coaching families to use STEM at home using telehealth and distance learning, peer-to-peer connections, and asynchronous and synchronous supports online in an online learning community. Thank you for watching this presentation. Please stay connected with STEMI and connect with us on our website, Facebook, and Twitter. And join our STEMI learning community at STEM4EC to connect with others, discuss STEM learning opportunities, successes, and experiences, as well as read our recent blog posts.
Meet one of our student remote rock stars, deaf performance artist and 4th grader Savannah Dayan, presenting Enjoy Your Summer and Watch Out for Sharks. Text, social media handle @SavvyASL. Now a girl with brown hair uses sign language while an announcer reads accompanying captions.
Hey, you guys! Have you noticed that scuba divers tend to wear dark-colored wetsuits? Not shiny or bright. Do you ever wonder why? Often, when fish are sick or injured, their scales may fall off and become shiny. Sharks and predators will recognize that sign of distress and attack. So, the next time you go diving in a bright, shiny wetsuit, sharks will be like, oh yeah, dinner time, and attack the diver because it mistook them as a fish. It's always best to wear dark colors when diving. Bye, have a great day. Disclaimer. Sharks aren't the big, scary predators that TV shows and movies make them out to be. In reality, sharks are misunderstood and fascinating.
Our Adapting for Disabilities track continues with Dr. Kent McIntosh, Professor, College of Education, University of Oregon. Dr. McIntosh presents an innovative app called Using the Be Positive app for young children with disabilities.
Hey, this is Kent from the Center on PBIS, and I wanted to share with you a little app that we've developed called Be Positive that you can get on any Apple or Android device. Show you a little bit about how you can use this for distance learning. So what you can see here is I'm right on the main page. There are 4 different micro apps. I'm just going to click on this first one called Reminder. And what I've got here is 2 preset reminders that I can use, opportunities to respond and specific praise that I want to cue myself to increase while I'm doing my distance instruction. So I can just start right here. Now it's set as a 2-minute reminder, and that's going to cue me on my watch. It's going to cue me on my phone, and so on. And then if I want to actually track my behavior, I can just tap up and down for any session that I want to, and it's right in there. If I go back to the main menu, if you look at this pre-correction alarm, this is a really useful way to remind me on a pre-scheduled time things that I want to make sure to do. So what you can see here is I've got a check-in, check-out check in with Trey and his mom, and that's Mondays and Fridays at 4:30, so that's going to cue me there. I also want to make sure for Trey that he comes to my live sessions, so I've got him here, and that reminder sets me up 15 minutes before I can send him the login info and make sure that he's coming to live sessions. And then, of course, for my higher ed instruction, I want to make sure to remind my students to give them a bathroom break because, yep, I sometimes forget to do that too. Cue over here, the counter I showed you before, and then I want to show you stats right down here as well. You can look, and here's my rates of specific praise for all the sessions I had. Click on progress, and I can show that over time. This is what I'm doing with you right now. And then what I can do is I can hit this share button, click over to mail, and I can send myself or anybody that graph that we just showed and the data right there. Thanks, everybody. Take care and be safe.
Now, one of our remote rock stars, Dr. Glenda Winfield from Jackson State University, Mississippi, presents the Parent-Teacher-Child Triangle for Remote Learning.
When we talk about the parent-teacher-child triangle for remote learning, really, it hasn't changed only to the extent that instead of having that physical brick and mortar, we now do it virtually. Remember, parents, guardians, you are in fact your child's first teacher. You provide them with that foundation for their social, emotional learning skills. You provide them with some life skills, preparing them for their teacher, who now builds upon what you've done. You will reinforce those activities, model and emphasizing to that child the importance of being a learned individual. There's no African proverb that is so appropriate. It takes a village to raise a child. This altruism is so appropriate. Always the goal is for all three, the parent, guardian, the teacher, and the child, be united in this educational process. Together, we're in this together.
Now, our Adapting for Disabilities Q&A session with Dr. Luis Perez, CAST, Dr. Fatima Elvira Terrazas Arellanes, University of Oregon, Dr. Jessica Amsbury, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, Dr. Kent McIntosh, University of Oregon, and Dr. Wendy Sapp, our moderator from Bridge Multimedia.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us for this Q&A. So I know that a lot of the Q&A were already answered in the box, but I think I'm going to bring them up so we can hear some of these answers as well for everyone. I know there was a question for the STEMI program about what CROWD stands for, CROWD.
What it really is a way to support folks. It's sort of that piece related to storybook conversations with young children. And so C is complete a sentence. R is recall. O is open-ended questions. The W means like sort of WH questions, and then D means sort of distancing questions. And so, for example, maybe I'm giving way too much information, but for completing a sentence with SIG, it might be like, Sid had to go to the doctor not twice, but how many times, and asking, children to provide that information. Or maybe an open-ended questions for that book is, how many beds does Sid have? And so there's some of the ways we've tried to connect it from the book to STEM using that sort of crowd approach that helps parents and caregivers and practitioners to really support children and kind of moving forward in their STEM understanding. And Ching, I don't know if you have anything to add, but I think that's the big pieces.
Yeah, so we definitely did not make up the crowd
acronym. It's actually from something called dialogic reading, which has a really strong evidence in early childhood and helping kids, support kids with their language and literacy skills.
Thank you. We have a question here for Fatima about accessibility in the science materials, about them being, whether they are free to access and for how long they might be free if they are.
Sure. They are currently free. They have been free for the last 10 years since we developed them. And we have thought about commercialization for the purpose of sustaining after our funding stream ends. Fortunately, we just got a new funding for the next 5 years, so there is no need to commercialize it. But we're always concerned that at some point when we don't have funding to sustain it, we will have to consider that option. But for now, the next 5 years is free. And because of the agreement that we have with our funding, all of the content always have to be free. That doesn't mean that we don't, that we cannot sell services or features of the program. So if we ever commercialize, it will be the services, the features of the program, what we will be selling. But the content itself needs to be on the Creative Commons for free.
Excellent, thank you. And there was a second question for you, Fatima, about accessibility by Braille note takers or JAWS. And if you could speak a little bit about where the product is now and where you hope to take it, that would be wonderful.
Sure. We follow the guidelines for accessibility that are required in our website. The one that was requested about is the first time I see it. Like I mentioned, the program and the focus of our program is for students with high incidence disabilities. However, because we have to follow the accessibility guidelines, we have alt tags. Our documents are formatted in a way that speech readers can read them correctly. But that particular functionality that was asked for is not something that we currently have. But I'm glad that it was brought up to me because it's something that I can definitely check. And if there is something that is easy for us to address, we address it when we find out that there's a need. And right now I know that is a need. So I'm going to look into it for sure.
Wonderful, thank you. Kent, could you take a minute and just, if you had to give parents and teachers one piece of advice for using your Be Positive app well with their students or their children at home, what would that be?
Sure. It's intended to be really, really broad. And so what I would suggest people do is they can think of any behavior that they want to cue themselves to increase the use of. So we started with thinking about what are high leverage practices, like providing opportunities to respond and providing behavior specific praise. But in reality, it could really be anything. And you just set a timer for how frequently you want to be prompted to do it. And then it'll just notify you right in your phone system for how to do it.
Great, thank you, Kent. And Luis, if you had to say, what's the biggest challenge that teachers or parents face when they start trying to look at UDL and begin with it, and then how that could be overcome, what would you say?
I think it's potentially getting overwhelmed at first, but I always preach taking a +1 approach. So try out one thing at a time this week, see how it works, collect some data on it, and then move on to the next thing. So really take on a growth mindset, the same growth mindset that we want our learners to have. We as educators and as parents, we should approach learning with that same growth mindset.
Wonderful, thank you. Megan or Ching, could you give us an example of just a fun activity that parents could use within your STEMI projects, science or technology activity for the very young children? This is an example to get people thinking.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of activities, and actually on our webpage, I know Ching and I were just chatting about making sure that after this, all the resources are really available. But I think the piece that we had Jessica share within the video related to sort of some activities you can do at home with the storybook reading, that is a series that we've developed that allow you to use whatever you have at home, and sort of help support you with some of the STEM content as you're reading some of those books as well. And I will say we are also in the process, we have a couple of series of blogs that have provided some information that might be helpful for families at home in terms of within those curated resource set. And I'll let Ching also share, but I think some of those curated resources that we put together have some things about talking about COVID, which might be some things that also really connect to STEM for very young learners. It's all geared towards how do we support children during this time as well with the STEM knowledge and understanding. And I will say maybe as another piece is we are in the process of developing activities that can be used in classrooms and programs and at home as well. I think most folks maybe know we were in the process of just getting ready to start testing some of those. And then we had the pandemic hit and we had to stop working in programs and at home. So we definitely will have more to come, and you'll be able to find all of those pieces at our website.
Great. We have a question, and this could go to several of you, I think. But I saw that Luis answered it in the box, but anyone else who'd care to add as well. Recommendations for resources about read-along tips for parents who have CI-ASD teenagers who are using Boardmaker supports. So if there's any suggestions for that, Luis, why don't you start with your response, and then we'll see if anybody else would like to add other resources.
So I recommended the Immersive Reader feature from Microsoft. It's built into a number of Microsoft tools, including Microsoft Word, OneNote, and so on. And it has really nice text-to-speech, but it also has a picture dictionary that's built in, and it uses Boardmaker symbols that the student may already be familiar with, so they don't have to learn another symbol library.
Megan, did you have something to add?
Well, I was going to add, as you know, we work more in birth to 5 with very young children. But I think one of our big pieces, as we talk about in STEMI, is making sure that we're thinking about how you can incorporate STEM into what you're currently doing. So like if you're at home, how do you put it into your routines and activities? And I think, and so some of that might be related to like, if you're doing bath time, or if you're, at the dinner table, how do you incorporate some of those pieces? So with the activities and Lois, I think what you said is, how do we make sure it's really connected to what we're already doing? I think is the big key pieces. And I do see that there was a question related to students that are deafblind. And I think that's the other piece we've also been talking about is how do we make sure we're focused on, what a child functionally needs versus this child has disability X. It's really thinking about what are the strengths and needs so that we can support children in engaging within that STEM. And for us, it's STEM content, but I think that's pretty applicable to other things as well. So we've really been trying to think about, as we provide supports and tips, how do we really build on kids' strengths and needs?
Thank you, Luis and Megan. And let's continue with that question. The actual question about deafblind was, does anyone have activities for students who are deafblind? Megan's already given a little bit of one way to approach that, looking functionally where the child is. Does anyone else have comments on that?
I would just emphasize that this kind of raises the importance for when we share videos to make sure that there are transcripts as well as the captions, because transcripts are really the only way that we can make that information available to someone who's deafblind, because the text in the transcript can then be converted to Braille, which really brings up the need to have robust Braille education, even as we move into the world of technology. And I'm as big an advocate as there is out there for the use of text-to-speech and other technologies, but I also believe in the power of Braille for giving learners independence. And so starting as early as possible with robust Braille education is important.
Yeah.
I think we have addressed the questions that I see in here, and I apologize if I missed any. Does anybody have a final 30 seconds comment they would like to share?
No, this was great. We were really excited to be a part of this, and it was kind of really nice to see that we had sort of birth to 21 represented, or birth to beyond, and really thinking about how we can support all learners and having, each and every learner and having engagement and access to different content and different resources.
I thank each of our presenters. Thank you, Kent and Luis and Fatima and Megan and Ching and Rachel, who was not able to join us for the Q&A. Thank you very much, and we will move on to our next session now.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Watch these other special education UnConference modules. Module 1, Platforms for Accessible Remote Learning. Opening welcome, Ed Metz, PhD, and Sarah Brazel, PhD, EDIES. Keynote, Sarah Chomsky, Growing Up and Bouncing Back. Module 2, Personalized Parent-Child Supports. Module 3, Curriculum Supports. Module 4, Math During COVID-19. Module 6, Research Updates. Module 7, Reaching Complex Students Through Collaboration on Distance Education. Module 8, EdTech Vendors Forum. Module 9, Closing Keynote, Richard Ellenson, What Have We Learned About Learning? Closing Comments, Tara Corshane, EDOSEP, and Kristen Kane, HHS.